You know what keeps me up at night? It's not the stock market. It's not even inflation anymore. It's watching folks who worked their entire lives, 40, 50 years, sometimes even longer, suddenly scrambling because they don't know when their next Social Security check is hitting their account. And here's the brutal truth nobody's talking about. The truth that gets swept under the rug while politicians argue about things that don't matter to people trying to buy groceries and keep the lights on. The Social Security Administration just rolled out payment schedule changes for February 2026 that are creating real cash flow problems for millions of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck on fixed incomes. And I'm not talking about minor inconveniences. I'm not talking about first world problems. I'm talking about people having to choose between their heart medication and their rent payment. I'm talking about seniors getting eviction notices because their payment timing doesn't line up with when their bills are due. Let me be crystal clear about something right from the start. This isn't fear-mongering. This is math. This is cold, hard reality that I see playing out in my office every single day. When your rent is due on the 1st, but your payment doesn't arrive until the 3rd Wednesday of the month because of how your birth date falls, that's not a minor inconvenience. That's a crisis waiting to happen. That's the difference between stability and absolute chaos for someone living on a fixed income with zero margin for error. And while everyone's buzzing about potential stimulus checks, and trust me, my phone has been ringing off the hook about this. I've gotten probably 200 calls in the last 2 weeks alone. I'm going to walk you through exactly what's confirmed, what's speculation, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to protect yourself from financial disaster, regardless of what Washington decides to do. Because here's the thing that nobody wants to tell you. You cannot build your financial security on maybes and possibilities. You have to build it on what you know for certain. Look, I've been doing this for over 30 years, 3 decades. I've worked with thousands of retirees. I've seen every scenario you can imagine, and probably a few you can't. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the number one mistake people make with their Social Security isn't about when they claim it or how much they get. Those are important, sure, but the biggest mistake, it's about not understanding the payment system itself. It's about not knowing when the money is coming and not planning around that reality. And February 2026 is proving to be one of those months where that lack of understanding is going to cost people real money if they're not prepared. So buckle up, because I'm about to give you the truth, unfiltered and direct, the way I wish someone had explained it to my own parents before they retired. So let me break this down for you the way I wish someone had explained it to my own parents before they retired. Because the system isn't complicated, but it's also not intuitive, and if you don't understand it, you're going to be stressed out every single month for the rest of your retirement. The Social Security Administration operates on a payment schedule that hasn't fundamentally changed since 1997. Now, you might be thinking, well, if it hasn't changed in almost 30 years, why are we talking about it? Great question, because here's what most people don't realize. And this is the part that trips up even smart, educated people. Your birth date determines when you get paid. Not your retirement date, not when you applied for benefits, not when you first started working or paying into the system. Your birth date, the day you were born, which you had absolutely no control over, determines when you see your money every single month for the rest of your life. Think about that for a second. Something that happened 65, 70, 75 years ago determines your cash flow in retirement. And if you don't understand this system, you're going to be constantly stressed out, wondering where your money is. You're going to be calling the Social Security office every month. Good luck getting through, by the way, asking why your neighbor across the street got paid and you didn't. You're going to be checking your bank account obsessively, refreshing it 20 times a day, thinking something's wrong when nothing's wrong. You just don't understand the schedule. So let me break this down in plain English. No jargon, no bureaucratic nonsense. If you were born between the 1st and the 10th of any month, January 5th, March 3rd, December 10th, whatever, your payment arrives on the 2nd Wednesday of every month. Every single month. Not the 2nd of the month, the 2nd Wednesday. That's a crucial distinction that trips people up constantly. I can't tell you how many calls I get from people saying, It's the second and my money isn't here. Well, no, because you get paid on the second Wednesday, which might be the 8th or the 11th or the 14th, depending on how the calendar falls. If you were born between the 11th and the 20th, say you're born on May 15th or October 18th, you get paid on the third Wednesday of the month. Same principle. Not the third of the month, the third Wednesday. And if you were born between the 21st and the 31st of any month, your payment comes on the fourth Wednesday. And here's where it gets interesting, because some months have 5 Wednesdays, but you still get paid on the fourth one. The system is rigid. It doesn't care about your bills or your schedule. It just follows the calendar. This system was supposedly designed to spread out payments and reduce the strain on the banking system, to avoid having 70 million payments all hit on the same day and potentially crash the system. But what it's actually done is create massive confusion and cash flow problems for people who don't understand it or who can't align their bills with when their money actually arrives. Now, there's one exception to this rule, and it's important. If you started receiving Social Security benefits before May 1997, and yes, there are still millions of people in this category, people who've been receiving benefits for 25, 28, 29 years, or if you're receiving both Social Security and Supplemental Security Income, which is SSI, you get paid on the third of every month, regardless of your birth date. This is what's called the legacy payment schedule. And honestly, if you're on it, you're actually in a pretty good position because you know you're always getting paid within the first few days of the month. You can plan around that. You can tell your landlord, your utility company, everyone, I get paid on the third. It's predictable. It's reliable. But for everyone else, and that's the vast majority of Social Security recipients today, you're at the mercy of the calendar and how the Wednesdays fall in any given month. And this is where February 2026 gets interesting and, frankly, a little frustrating for a lot of people. So let's talk specifically about February 2026, because this is where things get interesting and, frankly, a little frustrating for a lot of people. This is where the rubber meets the road, where theory becomes reality, and where some people are going to run into serious problems if they haven't planned ahead. February 3rd falls on a Tuesday this year, which means those who get paid on the third of the month will see their deposits hit on that day. That's pretty straightforward. If you're one of those legacy recipients or you're getting SSI along with your Social Security, you're golden. Your money hits on February 3rd right after the weekend, and you can plan your entire month around that. You can pay your rent on the 4th or 5th, get your groceries, handle your bills, and you're good to go. But here's where it gets tricky for everyone else. And I need you to pay close attention, because this is where I see people make mistakes that cost them hundreds of dollars in fees and stress that literally affects their health. The second Wednesday of February is the 11th. Think about that. That's 11 days into the month before the first group of people sees their money. The third Wednesday is the 18th. That's more than half the month gone. And the fourth Wednesday is the 25th. We're talking about almost the end of the entire month. Now, I want you to think about what that means practically, especially if you're in that last group. Put yourself in these shoes for a minute. If you're someone who was born on March 28th or April 25th or any date between the 21st and 31st, and you're waiting for that fourth Wednesday payment, you're looking at February 25th before you see a dime. That's almost a full month after your January payment. Let's do the math together. Your January payment probably hit around January 22nd or 23rd, depending on exactly how the Wednesdays fell in January. So you're talking about a 33, 34-day gap between payments, more than a month. And here's the kicker. Your bills don't care about that gap. Your landlord doesn't care. Your electric company doesn't care. They want their money when they want their money. And if you haven't budgeted for that gap, if you haven't planned for the fact that your bills are going to come due before your money arrives, you're in trouble, real trouble, the kind of trouble that spirals and compounds and gets worse before it gets better. And this is where I see people make catastrophic financial decisions that haunt them for months or even years. Let me paint you a picture of what happens, because I see this play out over and over and over again. They panic. It's the 5th of the month. Their rent was due on the 1st. They're getting threatening notices from their landlord, and they still have 3 weeks before their Social Security check arrives. So what do? They don't know what else to do, so they take out payday loans at 400% annual interest rates. 400%. That's not a typo. They think, oh, I'll just borrow $300 to get through until my check comes, and then I'll pay it back. But then they can't pay it back in full because they still have other bills to cover, so they roll it over, pay another fee, and suddenly that $300 loan has cost them $450 or $500 in fees. They've made their situation worse, not better. Or they overdraft their checking accounts. They write a check or use their debit card thinking the money's coming soon, and they rack up $35 overdraft fees. Sometimes multiple $35 fees if several things hit before they realize what's happening. I've seen people get hit with $175 in overdraft fees in a single week because they miscalculated when their Social Security was coming and didn't have enough cushion in their account. They put groceries on credit cards they can't pay off. Credit cards charging 24% or 29% interest. And what starts as a $50 grocery run to get through the week, just some bread, milk, eggs, the basics, turns into debt that takes months to pay down, eating into their limited income every single month, making it harder and harder to get ahead. All because they didn't know when their money was coming and they didn't plan accordingly. All because they didn't understand this system that's been in place for nearly 30 years, but that nobody bothered to explain to them clearly. Let me tell you something that might be hard to hear, but it's the truth that will set you free if you let it. Poverty isn't just about how much money you make. It's about not knowing how to manage the timing of that money. I've seen people making six figures, $120,000, $150,000 a year, live paycheck to paycheck, constantly stressed, constantly scrambling, constantly one unexpected expense away from disaster. And I've seen people on modest Social Security benefits, $2,400, $1,600 a month. That's it. Live with dignity and margin and peace because they understood cash flow. They knew when every dollar was coming in and when every dollar had to go out. They planned accordingly. They built a small cushion. They communicated with their creditors. They made it work. Now, let's address the elephant in the room that everyone keeps calling me about. The topic that's got my phone ringing nonstop for the past 3 weeks. Stimulus checks. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you here because I respect you too much to blow sunshine at you. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to give you the truth so you can make informed decisions. As of right now, in late January 2026, there is no confirmed federal stimulus payment scheduled for February. None. Zero, zilch, nada. I don't care what your nephew posted on Facebook. I don't care what some YouTube video with 1 million views and a clickbait thumbnail told you. I don't care what text message you got or what your friend at church said she heard from her daughter, unless it's coming from an official government source. And I mean .gov websites, official Social Security Administration announcements, IRS releases, actual legislation that's been passed. It's speculation at best and a scam at worst. And let me tell you, the scammers are having a field day with this stuff. It makes me absolutely furious. I want to reach through the phone and shake these people. They're calling seniors vulnerable people, pretending to be from the Social Security Administration, using spoofed phone numbers that look legitimate when they pop up on your caller ID. They're sending text messages saying, you need to verify your information to get your stimulus payment. Click here to confirm your Social Security number and bank account. They're setting up fake websites that look almost identical to the real government sites. Same colors, same logos, professional looking, designed specifically to steal your information and your money. It's disgusting. It's predatory. And it makes me want to personally go after every single one of these criminals. I've had clients, good, smart people, people who've run businesses, raised families, paid their taxes, done everything right, almost fall for these scams because they're sophisticated and they prey on people's desperation and hope. So let me make this absolutely crystal clear, and I want you to hear me on this. The Social Security Administration will never call you and ask you to verify your Social Security number. Never. They already have your number. They're the ones who gave it to you. They will never send you a text message with a link. That's not how they operate. They will never ask you to pay a fee to receive your benefits or a stimulus payment. Any government payment you're entitled to is free, period. If someone contacts you claiming to be from Social Security or the IRS and asks for personal information or money, it's a scam, 100% guaranteed. Hang up immediately, delete the text, close the website, don't engage, don't try to argue, don't try to figure out if it's real. Just end the contact and report it to the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov. But here's what I do know, and this is based on how the system has worked historically when the federal government has issued stimulus payments in the past. When the federal government does issue stimulus payments, and notice I said when, not if, because historically it's a matter of when, not if, though timing is impossible to predict, they typically go out to Social Security recipients automatically without any action required on your part. You don't have to call anyone. You don't have to fill out a form. You don't have to verify anything. You don't have to visit a website. The system is designed to be automatic because they already have all your information. The IRS uses your Social Security information to send the payment either through direct deposit to the same account where you receive your benefits or by mail if you don't have direct deposit set up. And this is crucial to understand, so pay attention. The payments usually go out in waves, not all at once. It's not like they flip a switch and 70 million people get paid simultaneously. It happens in phases. Direct deposit recipients get their money first, sometimes within days of the announcement, sometimes literally 48 to 72 hours after Congress passes the legislation and the president signs it. Meanwhile, paper checks can take weeks or even months to arrive. During the pandemic stimulus rounds, and I remember this vividly because I was fielding hundreds of calls every single day, my staff was overwhelmed. We were working 12, 14-hour days trying to help people. We saw some people waiting 8 to 12 weeks for their checks to show up in the mail. 8 to 12 weeks. That's 2 to 3 months. And during that entire time, people were panicking, calling every day, thinking their check got lost or stolen or that they weren't eligible, when in reality it was just slow. The government was printing and mailing tens of millions of checks, and the system was overwhelmed, which is exactly why I've been preaching for years that if you're not set up for direct deposit, you need to do that today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you get around to it. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it in just a few minutes. But first, let me paint you a picture of what happened during the last major stimulus distribution, because I think it's instructive for understanding what might happen if there is another stimulus payment. Let me paint you a picture of what happened during the last major stimulus distribution because I think it's instructive. The government announced the payments, and within 72 hours, I'm talking 3 days, my phone lines were jammed. Absolutely jammed. I couldn't keep up. I had people calling at 6 a.m., people calling at 10 p.m., asking when their money would arrive. Where's my payment? I checked my bank account 3 times today, and there's nothing there. My neighbor got hers. Why didn't I get mine? Did I do something wrong? Social Security recipients were told they'd get their payments automatically, and most did. The vast majority, probably 85%, 90% of people, got their money within a couple of weeks. But there were exceptions that caused massive confusion and real hardship for people who were counting on that money immediately to pay overdue bills, to buy medications, to catch up on rent. People who had changed banks since their last tax return ran into problems. The IRS tried to deposit the money into their old account, which was closed, so the payment got rejected and bounced back. Then the IRS had to figure out what happened, reprocess the payment, issue it as a paper check instead, which took weeks longer. Weeks of these people waiting and wondering and worrying. People who had closed accounts, maybe they switched from a big bank to a credit union trying to avoid fees, or they closed an account because of overdraft problems, or they moved to a different state and changed banks, suddenly found themselves in limbo, waiting for the IRS to figure out that the direct deposit failed and to issue a paper check instead. People who had never filed tax returns because their only income was Social Security, and there are millions of people in this category, people who don't have any other income, who aren't required to file taxes, weren't in the IRS system the same way as people who file returns every year, which caused delays and confusion about whether they needed to take some kind of action to claim their payment. All of these folks experienced delays, sometimes significant delays, 6, 8, 10 weeks or more. And the worst part, the absolutely most frustrating part of the whole thing, was that the official communication was terrible, absolutely terrible. The government did a horrible job of explaining what was happening, who was eligible, when payments would arrive, what to do if you didn't get your payment. People couldn't get through to the IRS phone lines. I'm not exaggerating when I say people would call hundreds of times, literally hundreds, and never get through to a human being. They'd just get busy signals or recordings saying, "Call volume is high, try again later," and then it would disconnect. The websites crashed from the traffic. The Where's My Payment tracking tool that the IRS set up was overwhelmed and often showed error messages instead of information. Or it would say payment status not available, which told you absolutely nothing and just made people more anxious. And misinformation spread like wildfire, absolute wildfire. Social media was a nightmare of false information and rumors. Facebook groups were filled with people making up theories about who was getting paid and who wasn't, with no basis, in fact. I had callers who were convinced they were never going to see their money because some neighbor told them you had to file a special form, which wasn't true, or because someone posted on Facebook that only people who filed taxes in the last 2 years were eligible, which also wasn't true for Social Security recipients. But try telling that to someone who's scared and confused and desperate, someone who needs that money to pay for their insulin or keep the heat on. Try explaining to a 78-year-old woman that no, she doesn't need to drive to the IRS office because there's no IRS office she can drive to. And even if there were, they couldn't help her there. It was heartbreaking. This brings me to a critical point about how you should be thinking about your finances right now, stimulus or no stimulus. And this is important enough that I want you to really hear me on this. I want you to pause, take a breath, and really absorb what I'm about to tell you. If you are depending on a theoretical stimulus check to pay for necessities, you are already in a financial emergency, and you need to treat it as such. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because pretending otherwise is going to make your situation worse, not better. Denial and wishful thinking don't pay bills. Stimulus payments are windfalls, not income. They're unpredictable. They're political. They depend on whoever's in power, what's happening in the economy, what's popular at the moment, what deals get cut in Washington, and they should never, ever be part of your basic survival budget. Your Social Security payment, that's predictable, that's guaranteed, or as close to guaranteed as anything in life can be. That's something you can count on. That's what you build your budget around. Everything else is extra. Everything else is a bonus. Everything else is something you can't and shouldn't rely on for your basic needs, like housing, food, utilities, and medicine. And I know that's hard to hear if you're struggling. I know it feels almost cruel when you're sitting there thinking, but I need that stimulus payment. I need it to catch up on my electric bill that's 2 months overdue. I need it to pay for my medications that I've been skipping doses on. I need it to fix my car so I can get to my doctor appointments. I understand that desperation. I really do. I've sat across the table from thousands of people in your exact situation. But here's the truth that will set you free. Waiting and hoping for money that may never come is not a strategy. It's a recipe for disaster. And the longer you wait, hoping that announcement is coming any day now, the worse your situation gets, the further behind you fall on your bills, the more late fees you accumulate, the fewer options you have. So what should you actually be doing right now instead of waiting by the mailbox, hoping for money that may or may not come? What should you be doing instead of refreshing your bank account every hour, checking for a deposit that might never appear? What should you be doing instead of listening to rumors and speculation and getting your hopes up only to be disappointed again and again? I'm going to give you a concrete action plan, not theory, not philosophy, not feel-good platitudes. Specific things you can do today, this week, that will actually improve your situation regardless of whether a stimulus payment ever materializes. First, you need to know your exact Social Security payment schedule for the entire year. Not just February, not just next month, the entire year. Get a calendar. I don't care if it's a paper calendar or your phone or a wall calendar from the insurance company. Mark the dates based on your birth date and plan your bill payments around those dates. If your rent is due on the 1st, but your Social Security doesn't come until the 18th, you need to have that conversation with your landlord now, not when you're 5 days late and facing an eviction notice. Call them, explain the situation, ask if you can pay on the 20th every month instead. Most reasonable people will work with you if you're upfront and honest and you actually stick to what you promise. What they won't tolerate is silence and surprises. What they won't tolerate is you just not paying and not communicating, making them chase you down. That's when people get mean. That's when landlords get aggressive about evictions. Communication is your friend. Second, you need to create what I call a margin fund, even if it's just $50 or $100. I know that sounds impossible if you're barely making ends meet right now. I know you're thinking, where am I supposed to find an extra $50? I can barely afford food. But here's the reality that you need to face. One unexpected expense, a $25 copay at the doctor, a prescription that's not fully covered and costs you $40, your grandson's birthday, and you want to give him $20, the price of milk goes up, will completely derail you if you have zero margin, zero cushion, nothing to absorb the shock. And the way you build that margin is by getting intense about your spending. I'm talking about going through every single expense with a fine-tooth comb and asking yourself if it's truly necessary right now in this season of your life when you're struggling. Are you paying for cable TV? That's $80, $100, $150 a month. That could be your margin fund. Get a digital antenna for $20 and watch free TV. Or use a streaming service that's $10 a month instead. Are you paying for a landline phone you never use because everyone calls your cell? That's $40 a month. Cancel it. Are you subscribed to magazines or newspapers you don't read? Cancel them. Are you buying lottery tickets hoping to hit it big? Stop. That's a tax on hope, not an investment. I'm not saying you can't ever enjoy life. I'm not saying you have to live like a monk and never spend a dime on anything pleasurable. But I am saying that if you're paying for cable TV while you're worried about buying groceries, we need to have a serious conversation about priorities. That's not judgment. That's math. Third, if you're not already signed up for direct deposit, stop what you're doing right now and get that handled immediately. This is non-negotiable if you want to improve your financial situation. You can call Social Security at 1-800-772-1213. Yes, you'll be on hold, probably for a while, but it's worth it. Or you can go to your local Social Security office. Call ahead to make sure they're open and see if you need an appointment. Or you can even handle it online if you create a My Social Security account at ssa.gov. Getting your payment potentially 2 weeks earlier than the paper check recipients isn't just convenient, it's financially strategic. It's the difference between making it and not making it some months. It means you have access to your money faster. You eliminate the risk of lost or stolen checks, which happens more than you'd think. And you don't have to waste time and gas money driving to the bank, or even worse, going to a check cashing place that's going to charge you $10 or $15 or 2% of your check just to give you your own money. That's money you can't afford to waste. Fourth, I need you to understand something about the Social Security cost of living adjustment that went into effect in January 2025, because this impacts your February 2026 payment. And I'm getting a lot of confusion about this. The COLA was calculated based on inflation data from the previous year. And while it provided an increase, your check went up by a certain percentage. Many recipients are finding that the increase is being eaten up by rising Medicare Part B premiums. This is a shell game that happens almost every year, and it's infuriating. It makes me so angry I can hardly talk about it calmly. You get a 3% raise in your Social Security, but your Medicare Part B premium goes up by $10 or $15 or $20 a month, which wipes out half or more of that increase. So your gross benefit went up, but your net benefit, the amount that actually hits your bank account, barely changed at all, or might have even gone down in some cases. So when you're looking at your February payment, don't be shocked if it doesn't feel significantly different from what you were getting last year. This is why I'm so passionate about people having additional income sources in retirement, even if it's just a small part-time gig, working 10 hours a week at a local store, or rental income if you're fortunate enough to own property, or dividends from investments you made when you were younger. Social Security was never designed to be your only income. It was designed to supplement pensions and savings, but for too many people, it's become their only income, and that's a precarious position to be in. Now, let me address something I'm seeing in the news that's causing a lot of anxiety, and that's talk about potential changes to Social Security itself. Every election cycle, every single one, like clockwork, we hear politicians arguing about the future of Social Security, and it scares people who depend on it. I get calls from people who are terrified that their benefits are going to disappear tomorrow. Let me be very clear about this, and I want you to hear me and believe me. Social Security is not going away. Not in your lifetime, not in my lifetime. The political cost of eliminating or dramatically cutting Social Security would be so severe that no politician who wants to keep their job is going to do it. They'd be voted out immediately. Seniors vote in huge numbers, and they're organized, and they're motivated. However, and this is important, changes are coming because the math simply doesn't work long term. The Social Security Trust Fund is projected to be depleted in the next decade, somewhere around 2033 or 2034, which means that without changes, the program will only be able to pay out about 79 cents on every dollar of scheduled benefits. That's a real problem. That's not fear-mongering or political spin. That's mathematics based on demographics and economics. But it's a problem that will be solved through some combination of raising the retirement age gradually over time, increasing the payroll tax cap so high earners pay more in, adjusting the COLA formula to be less generous, or means testing benefits so wealthy people get reduced benefits. Those are all unpleasant options that people don't like to talk about, but they're far more likely than just letting the program collapse. Politicians will fix it because they have to. The question is just which combination of fixes they'll use and when they'll implement them. What does this mean for you practically? It means that if you're already receiving Social Security, you're probably in pretty good shape because politicians are very reluctant to change benefits for current recipients. It's called the third rail of politics. Touch it and you die politically. So existing beneficiaries are usually protected or grandfathered in. If you're close to retirement age within 5 or 10 years, you need to be paying attention to these discussions and maybe considering claiming earlier than you planned if you think future changes might reduce your benefits. That's a personal decision that depends on your health, your financial situation, your family history, lots of factors. And if you're younger, if you're in your 40s or 50s, you need to be planning for Social Security to be a supplement to your retirement income, not the foundation of it. You need to be saving independently in 401ks, IRAs, other investments, because Social Security might not be as generous for you as it is for current retirees. But regardless of where you are in that spectrum, panic is not a strategy, and burying your head in the sand isn't either. Information and planning are your friends. Let me tell you what I'd be doing if I were receiving Social Security right now and worried about making ends meet. I'd be looking at every single government benefit program I might qualify for that I'm not currently using. Most people are leaving money on the table, benefits they're entitled to, because they don't know about them, or they're too proud to apply, or they think the application process is too complicated. Are you eligible for SNAP benefits, what used to be called food stamps? There's no shame in this. These programs exist specifically to help people afford food, and if you qualify, you should be using them. They can add $150, $200 or more a month to your food budget. Are you getting help with your heating and cooling bills through LIHEAP, the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program? This can help pay your electric or gas bills during extreme weather months. In some states, it's several $100s a year in assistance. Are you signed up for Medicare's Extra Help program if you're struggling with prescription costs? This program helps pay for Medicare Part D premiums, deductibles, and copays. It can save you thousands of dollars a year in out-of-pocket costs. Are you taking advantage of senior discounts at grocery stores and restaurants? Many places offer 10%, 15%, even 20% off for seniors on certain days. That adds up. If you're spending $400 a month on groceries and you get 10% off, that's $40 a month, almost $500 a year. These aren't handouts. These are programs that exist specifically to help people who've worked their whole lives and now need some support. There's no shame in using them. The shame is in suffering silently when help is available. The shame is in going without food or medicine because you're too proud to ask for help that you're entitled to. I also want to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention, and that's the tax implications of Social Security benefits. A lot of people don't realize that depending on your total income, up to 85% of your Social Security benefits can be taxable at the federal level. If you have other income sources like pension payments, retirement account withdrawals, or even part-time work, you could be creating a tax liability that surprises you come April. And if you're not having taxes withheld from your Social Security payment, you could end up owing money you don't have when you file your taxes. That's a crisis waiting to happen. You can request to have federal taxes withheld from your Social Security by filing Form W-4V. It's a simple one-page form, and depending on your situation, that might be a smart move to avoid a tax bill you can't pay. Better to have them withhold $50 or $100 a month throughout the year than to owe $200 all at once in April. The stress you're feeling about payments and stimulus checks is real and valid, but it's not the core problem. The real issue is reaching retirement without a clear plan and a system that's confusing and poorly explained. That's not your fault, but it is your reality. We can't change the past, but we can take control right now. This is about action, not blame. Knowledge brings confidence. Planning brings peace. People aren't stressed because they have the least money. They're stressed because they don't have a plan. Stop guessing when money is coming. Know it. Mark payment dates. Set up direct deposit. Learn your schedule. Stop waiting for stimulus and start creating breathing room. Cut costs. Claim benefits. Build even a small cushion. Face the hard conversations. Take control instead of letting fear freeze you. You've survived worse than this. You're stronger than you think. With a clear plan, you'll get through this and do it better. Now take action.